All right, 10, 11, and 12, we are doing the law of cosines. The law of cosines is used when you have the case where you have a side, side, side. You have all three sides, but none of the angles. So the law of cosines says, if I take a squared, it's going to equal b squared plus c squared minus 2bc times the cosine of angle A. Now they're going to rearrange it and solve it for all the rest of the variables, but notice here when this was a squared, that this was b and c, this was also b and c, and then whatever this was, that's the angle that we have over here. So when I do it for b squared is going to equal a squared plus c squared minus 2ac cosine of b. And if I have for c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine of c. So my law of cosines, when I have side, side, side. So for this one says, consider the triangle ABC like the one below. Suppose that A is 35, B is 49, and C is 40. Solve my triangle. In other words, find what angle A is, angle B is, and angle C is. Carry your intermediate computations to at least 4 decimal places. Round your answer to the nearest tenth. So if we learned a lesson from the other day, make sure you carry out your decimal far enough so you don't get a rounding error on your answer. So I'm plugging this in. First of all, I'm going to find angle A, so I'm going to use my top one here. A squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine of A. So a squared, 35 squared, equals b squared, 49 squared, plus c squared, 40 squared, minus 2bc, so 49 times 40, cosine of A. So this was side A, cosine of A over here. Now when I solve this, I'm going to go ahead and move these two things over here and use my calculator. So first of all, I'm going to say 35 squared minus 49 squared minus 40 squared, moving this and this, is equal to negative 2 times 49 times 40 cosine of A. Now I'm just going to grab my calculator and do my calculations. So 35 squared minus 49 squared minus 40 squared excuse me, is negative 2,776. Over here, negative 2 times 49 times 40 gives me negative 3,920 cosine of A. So when I divide, I'm going to have a negative over a negative. So 2,776 over 3,920 equals the cosine of A. So in order to solve that on my calculator, I end up doing the inverse cosine of that fraction, 2,776 over 3,920. So on my calculator, shift cosine in parentheses 2,776. I can either use the fraction button or the division. I'm just going to use the division. So 2,776 divided by 3,920, close my parentheses, hit equals, I get 44.9143. I want to round my answer to the nearest tenth. So for angle A, I have 44.9 degrees. Angle A, 44.9 degrees. Now, I still need to find angle B. So for angle B, now I'm going to use my second formula. So B would be 49 squared equals 35 squared plus 40 squared minus 2 times 35 times 40 cosine of B. So when I solve this, taking a few more shortcuts so I have writing room, I'm first of all going to move these over to the other side. So 49 squared minus 35 squared minus 40 squared, I'm going to end up dividing by this. So divided by negative 2 times 35 times 40 is going to equal the cosine of b. I'm still going to figure out the top and bottom separately. Otherwise, I might have to use parentheses around the bottom, but I'm just going to do them separately. So 49 squared minus 35 squared minus 40 squared would give me negative 424. Negative 2 times 35 times 40 gives me negative 2,800. A negative over a negative is going to make that a positive. So I'm going to do the inverse cosine of 424 over 2,800. So punching that into my calculator. Shift cosine parentheses. 424 divided by 2,800, close my parentheses, gives me 81.29. So 81.2902, I would round that off to 89.3. So B, 89.3 degrees. Now, the nice part is I could use the third one with the law of cosines and figure out angle C. But because I know what angle A is and what angle B is, I can take a shortcut to find angle C. In order to find angle C, I can just subtract from 180 degrees. However, be careful. Try not to use the rounded off values, and so use these ones before you round it off. So I'm going to go ahead and take 180 minus my 44.9143 minus my 81.2902, just so I don't get rounding errors on my final answer. So 180 minus 44.9143 minus 81.2902 gives me 53.7955. So if I round that off, 53.8 degrees. And so, after all of that work, if you can read all of that, angle A was 44.9, angle B 89.3, C 53.8. Again, it doesn't happen a lot where you get a rounding error, but just to be careful, try not to use your rounded off angles. Use the ones before you rounded your answer, just to make sure that you get the right decimal place on your answer. So, that was 10. We need to go to 11. Number 11, same thing. I'm going to use my law of cosines. Consider my triangle. A is 24, B is 38, C is 123 degrees. Now in this case, I've got two sides and an angle. Side angle. Two sides in the included angle, so I should probably write it this way. Side, angle, side is probably how they have that. Side, angle, side case. Again, I'm going to use my law of cosines eventually in here, and I might even use my law of sines while I'm at it. So, on here, if I'm going to solve that first one here, I want to find my missing side, which is side C. So I can use my law of cosines and say that C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared minus 2AB cosine of C, which is 123 degrees. Now I could probably do that whole calculation at once, but I'm going to kind of put it together. So I'm going to do these two things first. 24 squared plus 38 squared is 2020. Minus 2 times 24 times 38 minus 1824 cosine of 123. I'm just going to punch that in. So 2020 minus 1824 cosine of 123 gives me c squared equals 3013.4216. To solve that, since it's c squared, I would have to take the square root. So I'm going to do on my calculator square root of the answer. Then I don't have to type it back in. Answer is right next to the equal. So square root ANS for answer. And I would get 54.8946. I'm rounding to the nearest tenth, so I would say 54.9. So side C we got was 54.9. We still need to find angle A and angle B. Now we could use the law of cosines to find angle A and angle B, but we can also use the law of sines to find angle A and angle B. And so in this case, since we're practicing the law of cosines, I'm just going to use my law of cosines. So I want to find angle A. So if I'm going to find angle A, I'm going to use side A. So I'm going to say 24 squared equals B squared, 38 squared plus C squared. Now be careful on this one again. We don't want to round that number off, so make sure you use the 54.8946 squared minus 2 times 38 times our 54.8946 sine of A, smooshing that all in there. So again, your intermediate computation should be to at least 4 decimal places. If you round them off, you may get rounding errors, so try not to do that. And so again, when I solve that, I'm going to take 24 squared minus 38 squared minus my 54.8946 squared. And I'm going to divide that by negative 2 times 38 times 54.8946. So on the top of my fraction, 24 squared minus 38 squared minus 54.8946 squared gives me negative 3881.4171. On the bottom, negative 2 times 38 times 54.8946 gives me negative 4171.9896. Again, I have a negative over a negative, so I'm going to use a positive, and I'm going to do the inverse cosine then of 3881.4171 over 4171.9896. Negative over a negative was a positive. So inverse cosine parentheses 3881.4171 divided by 4171.9896 equals 215103. So angle A is going to be 21.5 degrees. Angle B. Angle B is going to be the easier one to find because I know angle C and I know angle A. I can take 180, subtract my 123, subtract my 21.5103, again to avoid rounding errors. So 180 minus 123 minus 21.5103 gives me 35.4897. So angle B is going to be 35.5 degrees. So I found side C using my law of cosines. I found angle A using my law of cosines. I found angle B by taking 180 and subtracting angle A and angle C, which I already knew. One more of those. Number 12. Again, this one is a side, side, side case. We know 3 of the sides. Side, side, side. A is 64, B is 61, C is 15. So using our law of cosines, again, I always like to just start with A. So 64 squared equals 61 squared plus 15 squared minus 2 times 61 times 15 cosine of A. So solving that or rearranging it, 64 squared minus 61 squared minus 15 squared divided by negative 2 times 61 times 15 equals the cosine of A. Simplifying the top, 64 squared minus 61 squared minus 15 squared would give me 150. It was positive that time. And negative 2 times 61 times 15 gives me negative 1830. So the inverse cosine of negative 150 over 1830, since we had a positive over a negative. So inverse cosine, parentheses, negative 150 divided by 1830. Close my parentheses, hit equals, I get 94.7016. So this is angle A. Angle A is going to be 94.7 degrees then. Now you may wonder, do I need to round that last number off? Just carry it to 4 decimal places. It really shouldn't make any difference if you would have rounded that up to 7 because we've carried it far enough. So I just write down the first 4 decimal places. I don't worry about rounding that end number. You can, it shouldn't make any difference. I found angle A. Next I need to find angle B. So again I'm going to use my law of cosines. B, 61 squared equals A squared plus C squared minus 2 times A times C cosine of B then. So same kind of thing, rearranging 61 squared minus 64 squared minus 15 squared over negative 2 times 64 times 15. So 61 squared minus 64 squared minus 15 squared is negative 600. Negative 2 times 64 times 15, negative 1920. So we're going to do the inverse cosine of, I have a negative over a negative, so a positive 600 over 1920. So shift cosine, inverse cosine, parentheses, 600 divided by 1920, close my parentheses, gives me 71.7900. So that's going to round up to 71.8. Angle C then, since I know angle A and B, I can just subtract from 180. So 180 minus my 94.7016 minus my 71.9700. So 180 minus 94.7016 minus 71.9700 gives me 13.3284. So angle C is 13.3 degrees when I round that off to the nearest 10. Oops, wait a minute here. I can't read my own writing. that was not supposed to be 71.97. It was supposed to be 71.79. Now let me resubtract that. So 180 minus 94.7016 minus 71.7900. 180 minus 94.7016 minus 71.7900 gives me 13.5084. So 13.5 should be my correct answer there. Trying to switch numbers around on you. So angle A came out to be 94.7, B 71.8, and C 13.5. I don't like my 8 there either. All right, so use the law of cosine to find angle A, the law of cosine to find angle B, and then took 180 and subtracted angle A and angle B to find angle C.